Yeah, this shit is just like planing. Right, what is it? It's just like diminished right there, right? Yeah, taking this diminished seven, moving it up by a whole step, and then like enclosing it or something, right? And then like changing the shape slightly. Yeah, it's like that C diminished, and then it goes up to D, but then becomes like altered. So it's like
Hey everybody, and welcome to Jazz Lab. I am ridiculously excited today to have the great Rob Araujo on here with us. Definitely goes kind of without saying that he needs no introduction. It's really awesome, Rob, because so many of my students are huge fans of you and your music. So such a pleasure to have you here, man. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your knowledge today.
dude, pleasure to be here, man. Yeah, I've known about Noah, man. I actually heard like little demo CD that you made in high school. One of my friends in high school, this cat named Chris Ayers, his older brother Rich was like some kind of musician, and he like knew you guys or knew your band or had gotten your CD from someone. So your name's been floating around for a while. It's cool to actually sit down and have a conversation with you, man.
Yeah, man, thank you so much for being here.
So
I'm really excited to do it. One of my first questions that I wanted to ask you is, when you sit down at the piano or whatever instrument you're sitting down, whether, maybe it's the computer, what's your first thought? What's your approach to actually diving into composition or beat making?
I think the first step in any composition of mine that I really like is to like kind of find the core of the song and play it and enjoy that. And writing is not really something that you can do without hearing it, to me, that I can do without actually actively hearing things and being able to, mess with things in slightly different ways and be like, all right, that's the way that I'm feeling. Let's build something around this. Um, so I always like sitting down at the piano. Usually before I compose, I'll just like play piano and improvise. Maybe play some standards or just come up with kind of like simple chord progression and mess with that. Run it through some different tempos, some different feels. Just like kind of warming up, kind of just having fun, and then maybe you'll stumble across something that could be used as a composition, and then you can kind of like build from that initial like inspiration, you know.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome.
yeah.
So do you usually build your drum loops from scratch? Do you ever kind of pop into any kind of loop material? Or is it a very kind of organic starting from scratch process, and then from there you start messing around with progressions and playing piano?
So when I started like producing and releasing music, I was using a lot of drum loops, and I would like chop them up in different ways. So I would take like maybe one 4-bar loop and then like copy it a bunch of times, but then go in and like chop out different drums and like nudge them around or like make new rhythms as like a drum fill uh, in places. And now I think it is much more helpful for me to kind of like make the drums like part by part. Like I have a track for the kick drum, I have a track for the snare, I have a track for each percussion, and kind of like synthesize those part by part and really try to like understand the groove and like what's happening there, and just make each part feel like really really tight before moving on to the next one. And that also gives me a lot more sonic freedom. Like I can use a lot of different samples, a lot of sampled material. I can use like drum VSTs. I'm not kind of constrained to just like finding a good drum loop. But at the same time, I think that I want to start working on some music where I'm using real drummers. I know a lot of super killing cats on drums, so many different styles that I think would be really fun to take and try and complement in the DAW and with the keys. I think production and keys are like kind of related in a really interesting way. Kind of the way you think about them is kind of intellectual, and you can really experiment and try weird shit and come up with cool stuff to do. So that's really what I like, is like having the core of the like groove set and then just trying to fuck with it as much as I can.
Totally. And as you just said, right, we can do so much with an acoustic drum loop, or even if it's not an acoustic drum loop, but we can take something that some killer drummer is playing and turn it into something that totally sounds produced if we want to. So kind of starting from the material of an amazing drummer is always really fun. But of course, if you're an amazing, drum producer, why not go for that too? But that's awesome. Yeah. So how did you, kind of shifting a little bit into the left brain industry talk, what was your journey into kind of establishing yourself as a pianist and composer? What did that look like for you? I'm really curious because, I've noticed all these different shifts in kind of, marketing and how people, I suppose, appear on the scene. And I feel like from my outside perspective, you had this really natural path of basically just being like, here's what I do, I'm awesome, check it out, and people just loved it. But I'm really curious, was there more behind the scenes, or was it actually just this totally organic process?
Well, for me, music was like, I cared about it a lot, but it wasn't like something that I was stressing myself about being a professional over, because I was doing a completely different thing. I was studying biology, so music was almost like the fun thing I got to do when I wasn't doing that, when I had some time to like play some piano instead of just like reading books or going to class or something like that. It was just like doing a bunch of shit, and then some of it worked out and led to new opportunities. Most of it was like whatever. It was fun. So you got to do it. I think you really got to do music or any like artistic pursuit because you like it. Because the only way you're going to get those like good opportunities, those big opportunities that actually lead to things, is by like doing a bunch of other shit that doesn't lead to anything and like practicing. It's like a lottery. And if you don't actually enjoy it, then you're not going to really do it for long enough to find some kind of success. Or at least most people don't. Some people get like super lucky. But for most people, it happens like after many years of like working and honing your craft and like, just trying things, trying and failing, and ultimately succeeding at something in the end. So
that's a really good point.
I guess that's what I have to say. Yeah.
Being okay with failing, that kind of classic cliche mantra of the only difference between a successful person and a, quote unquote, less successful person, however you define success, is that successful person was totally willing to just go out and fail over and over and over. So in other words, it's really just kind of a quantity game, right? It's like if I failed 1,000 times, for every 1,000 times I fail, I'm going to have that one huge success that propels me to the next stage of my career or whatever. And if you're out there and you're too scared to show what you're doing because you're afraid of failure, then you're never going to get to that 1,000 number, and you're probably never going to get that one great success,
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. I think there's kind of like two sides to that debate. There's like one side which says, all right, you really need to like be very intentional and be very thoughtful, and like they would say like quality over quantity. And I think that ultimately that is almost arrogant to say that, because I think that most artists, even like the best artists, like don't really know like what that they create artistically will resonate with people the most before they like release it or let people see it. And there's a lot of cases where artists will take a song that almost didn't make the record and just like shove it on there, and that's like the most popular song on the entire record. There's many documented cases of that. So I think with the arts, consistency and quantity, like obviously you can say that, you should take lessons, you should practice your skills, you can do that all you want. That's just not how music is. We have cats who like don't have any conventional training in music who are creating music that is like really resonating with people, and they are like making a music business, their own music business based off of that music. So I mean, I can't say, I mean, I think it's good to try and become as good as you can, but I think what's more important to view art as like a means of conversation, like a means of interacting with people. And if you have something compelling to say, and if you can come up with a way to express that resonates with people, that's really what matters. Yeah, and that's really, I think, the biggest change that has occurred in the arts as a result of internet technologies. Like, because you can distribute it everywhere, and there's ways to like pay for it directly through the device and all this other shit, you can really build a niche community and make like a healthy it's like an emerging middle class of artists. I think there is, with like all these new technologies where like you can really make a career off of like it's just like, instead of having to supply art to everyone at the same time, you can supply art to only some people and make it hyper specific, and it provides a certain level of value to them that mainstream art doesn't provide, and those people are willing to like pay a premium for that. And so like that's all you need to do as an artist in this century, is like exploit that and find your niche. And the only way you do that, really, the way to find your niche is just consistency.
Absolutely, man. And I'm having so much fun talking about this, and I think so much of what we chatted about, people are going to find really, really inspiring, especially hearing it coming from you. But that said, I want to transition into some more musical stuff, some more directly.
Let's do it.
Let's get to the keyboard a little bit. So
the theoretical.
Yeah, the theoretical. Let's get back into the theoretical, the post-analysis here. And so one of my favorite things about your playing is that you approach improvisation with certain dissonances that I just find really, really compelling. And I'm really curious, how much you've thought about this stuff. How much is what you're doing just where your ears take you? How much of it has been stuff that you've experimented with? And after that, I might even be super interested in hearing you show some of it, or even talking about one of your solos from your record. I have one in mind that's, I think, very, very well known and popular that my students love.
Which one?
Moonrock.
Oh, nice. Yeah. That one is, I just did that one, so I can definitely talk about that one. I mean, dude, I think one thing that I actually got from like listening to Jacob Collier, and I took a little lesson. His this guy June Lee, who transcribes a lot of like Jacob Collier stuff. He at one point was giving lessons, and I took a lesson from him because I was like really interested in like what this guy's opinions were on like Jacob's techniques, because he had just transcribed so much of his stuff. Obviously, you just like see, if there's any patterns, you spot them. That's how you spot them. It's just like repetition. So, I talked to him, and a lot of it, like June was like, a lot of it is voice leading. It's like, if you think about how the voices are moving, that's kind of what is the interesting thing about the chords. Not really the identity of the chords themselves, but like how the voices are moving compared to each other. And then how the chord resolves. So I thought that was a super interesting concept. And also I transcribed some Robert Glasper. I listened a lot to Robert Glasper and listened to the way he improvised, especially on this one record, In My Element. I really like that. I still need to really dig into that a little more. But I don't know. I noticed that Robert Glasper was using like a lot of triads, a lot of triadic stuff when he was playing out. He would choose a certain triad compared to like whatever the key at the moment was. He would pick a triad like B major over D minor, for example. And so I just started experimenting with playing different triadic vocabulary over different chords of other material I had. And I think that kind of those two things form the core of my outside playing, perhaps, where I think a lot about like self-contained shapes when I play outside. I'm thinking like within a scale. And I think that playing outside is really cool because you are kind of bending one kind of like side of the square, you know what I mean? If I don't know, you could there's like so many different ways you could break down like what a note is or what music is or what anything like that is. But maybe some properties are like what's the rhythm? What's like the key? What notes are being played relative to each other? And you can like really fuck with one and keep the others consistent, and it's almost like magic to a lot of listeners because they're like, this shouldn't work, but it does. In some ways it does, in some ways it doesn't. And it's also just like a different way to create tension, uh, and play with like creating tension and resolving tension. So I don't know, I basically just piled on a bunch of buzzwords there, but um,
No, that's awesome. I mean,
yeah,
yeah.
I think pretty intuitively. I'm pretty experimental with that shit. I mess around with it and find something that works, and then I play that. I'll say that.
Would you be down to go back to the whole Moonrock dissonance conversation, and would you be down to walk us through kind of some of the way you think about that song? Maybe even show us some stuff in terms of what you're doing.
Dude, yeah, sure. I'd be down. So like the chords here are pretty simple. Let's see. Yeah, because I'm like changing the pitch in weird ways on this song. Yeah.
Ooh.
Uh, yeah. So there's just that one. It just kind of goes like C sharp minor, A flat 7, then like F sharp sus, F sharp 7 flat 9, and then that just resolves, instead of resolving to like the 1, you could call it like the B major. It just kind of loops back to C sharp. So I think that one of the main ways I'm thinking about the soloing on this tune is like taking this 5, because this has like the same harmony. This like F sharp sus has the same harmony as this C sharp minor, and then this is kind of like a dip outside of that, but it comes right back. So this is really where like all the tension is, right? So I'm thinking a lot about like A flat 7 and like resolving in different ways to that stuff. But with this solo, I guess I was definitely playing outside a lot. I think a lot of the lines in this solo, I'm like starting in a key, maybe in A flat 7 or in C sharp minor. Man, with the N harmonics over here, bro. I don't know. Should I use
I
what do you
never
use?
know
D flat minor and A flat, or what? See, because I always think it's easier for me to think about C sharp and easier for me to think about A flat.
That's so funny. Yeah,
So
I'm a
I'm just
flat
gonna
thinker.
be a monster.
Just
D
go
flat,
for it.
I don't know. D flat just doesn't do it for me, man. D flat doesn't do. I need that C sharp minor on the on the real
do
book
you.
charter. I'm fucking it up. Yeah, pretty much all of these licks start in a key that makes sense, that's congruent with the chords that are going on, and then they take like a shape that's being played and they kind of like move it outside of the key and like plane it in some way and then come back in the key. So that's a lot of what I was thinking for that solo.
Cool.
I can like pull up the midi.
Oh man, that'd be pretty cool. Yeah, and while you're doing that, I'll kind of demonstrate. I think I got a better handle on it now. So for this kind of C sharp minor 9 to this kind of A flat 7
Yeah, yeah.
with the sharp 5. And then this kind of, I can't remember if you said G flat or F sharp, sus 13.
Yeah, it's like F sharp sus 13, and then it kind of moves the G sharp and the B kind of like move down to G and B flat for this like dominant flat 9 vibe, and then it cycles back around to C sharp. I need to play down here. Yeah, I never played in that key because I actually used this plugin to change the pitch on that song, because then I can automate it. So instead of having to like play between half keys and like physically change the like pitch, I can like automate it to change like gradually over like a measure, for example.
That's cool.
And I can like program it to be like in between notes and shit like that. So
that's awesome.
I wouldn't recommend doing that on music though. You run into some difficulties. And this scale up, bro, holy shit.
Isn't it funny analyzing yourself?
Yes. This looks like F major scale. F major scale here. Some like I have no piano sound there, but some like that. Then some kind of movement.
So in a way, it's also kind of like D minor, like it's sort of got that half step above sound.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Exactly. And then it resolves back in with like being in key, with like something I think that's partially what makes it work, is like being so explicit with the melodies on both ends, because you're really maintaining kind of like that side of the square, or whatever you want to call it, where like the rhythm makes sense, the melodies like make sense within themselves, like even if it's a half step away, it's still like pretty simple like melodic stuff within one key. And so like I think we definitely recognize subconsciously, like we might not know the pitches, but we can like hear like the difference between the pitches like in distance. That definitely contributes to the sound. I mean, obviously it does, but like people can tell when it's like within a scale, even if it's not in the right scale. Like you can keep what you're playing within a certain scale, and that will give it a certain sound. In this solo.
Yeah, one of the things I love about thinking of it that way is you can get a bit formulaic with it, right? So you can be like, all right, C sharp minor, and be like, okay, this kind of F major sounds great. And you can almost like be like, I'm gonna get this in my ear. And actually, I kind of love that, just like as a chord. It's so weird. But
yeah,
like,
right.
Then and one of the things for me that you did there that's so awesome is just how you immediately like completely naturally resolve back end like a...
Exactly. And the way, let me see the exact note I'm doing that on. E, F, G, A, B flat, C, and then C sharp, and then D sharp. So it's like F major. I need to go the octave up. It's like I'm just immediately like, I'm getting to that C. And I mean, you think about like you just like play any scale and compare it to like a parent key that you're like superimposing it over, and just see like what notes are the same. So like if we're in C sharp minor, right, maybe like the B flat is the same. Maybe you could see that as like the sharp 11 or the 13 or whatever of C sharp minor. But like most of these notes are not in this chord, right? But then any of these notes are a half step away from the notes then, because like as far as like major and minor scales go, like scales with 7 notes in them, it's almost impossible. You're almost always on a note in that scale or a half step away. So again, like the ability to go just like one step up or one step down is like useful for more than if you're just playing in like one half step above or below. It's useful in like a much more like localized way, where if you're on a note and you can go like move it a half step up, then you're in the next like set of notes. And that's, yeah, this shit is just like planing. Right, what is it? Fucking just diminish shit. What are the next? I don't remember the exact notes I'm playing. What am I doing here? This first, I'll go over this like little planing thing. There's a it's just like diminished right there, right? Yeah, taking this diminished step and moving it up by a whole step, and then like enclosing it or something, right? And then like changing the shape slightly. Yeah, it's like that C diminished, and then it goes up to D, but then becomes like altered. So it's like, and then it ends in a some shit like that in yeah, kind of like in C major, you know?
Right,
C,
right.
Yeah, C major, A minor, something like that. I mean, don't ask me why I resolved there.
Well, you're just doing
again,
it
it's
naturally,
like,
right?
Well, F is really close to C. I guess it's like those two scales are really far away from C sharp minor. I guess C has more in common with C sharp minor than F major does, but yeah, it's just like outside. It just sounds outside, so...
Well, it's so cool because I think the way you structured this lick is, you know, it'd be really easy to just be like... You know what I mean? But you're not doing that. You're actually adding in different patterns, and then you're switching up the pattern to give it more of an actual, you know, kind of linear contour and progression, and then ending at that F major. So I guess, you know, the kind of A diminished. Sorry. To the D. And this is this all over the C sharp minor still, or is this a different spot?
I mean, this is like kind of irrespective of the chords at this point. There's like a loop that's going on that is like kind of going back and forth. And so in the beginning of the lick, I'm starting by playing like very explicitly in the chords. I'm actually doing like, let me zoom in here. It might be hard to hear through the mic, but basically I start by playing like A flat 7 material, right? Right? Yeah, so I start in like that C sharp minor, like, yep, exactly. It's just like that kind of like altered kind of like vibe, you know? And then I do some bebop shit down to this A, which is like still in the chord because we're in like that A flat altered, like that flat 9 sharp 9 kind of vibe. And then and then there's this shape, right? And I think one cool thing you can work on as a soloist if you're trying to like fuck with your solos is to like take a motif and mess with it in some way. It's like keeping one thing constant and then changing something else about it. So like keeping the fact that there's 4 notes, right? And then like changing where the pattern actually comes in by like introducing other notes. So it's like, right? So instead of this, it's like, and then changing like one note to be a different interval, right? And then, right, playing that, and then keeping that, and that's like a super, I just know that's like just bebop shit, and that's like, I'm not thinking about like, oh, I'm gonna do this. It's just like, all right, I get to this, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna play, like, this was really like a weird sound, like this weird, like, kind of half diminished 7 sound or whatever it is. So I'm gonna play something super basic, and that leads into like that vocabulary, which is just like super easy to do. But then I guess you're ending on E, which is like a note in C sharp minor. It's like in the chord. So
amazing, man. Well, thank you so much. That's incredible advice to everybody. And speaking of which, where can everybody follow you on social media? What are your handles on your
man,
Twitch, Instagram,
everybody, almost all of my handles for Instagram, for Facebook, for Twitter, for Twitch, for TikTok, it's Rob Arousal, ROB Arousal, AROUSAL. That's my my makeshift name right now. So come catch me on Twitch, come catch me on Instagram. I'm releasing more shit. You know, as we go, I'm accelerating my rate of completing things and putting things out. Got a lot of cool stuff planned for the rest of this year and next year. So come get suited up, guys.
Awesome.
Chill with Rob, bro.
Can't wait, man. Well, thank you so much for being here. Really, really appreciate you imparting your wisdom on myself.
Thank you, man.
I think it did.
And all this shit is just opinions, man. It's just like what I think. It's not right or wrong. Just like if you the listener, you the viewer, you get something from this, great. If you think it's bullshit, then great. That's also true. It's just all personal. It's all like whatever you can get from it. So move forward and do your own thing, cats.
Totally, man. Just like music, 100%. That's awesome. Well, dude, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for finally getting to chat, bro. This was a good time, bro. I had a good time. We got to do this again sometime.
Yeah.
Let's make some shit soon, bro.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We're gonna make that happen for sure.